Welcome to the Recycle Podcast, where we discuss everyday issues from a mental health perspective. We are your hosts,
Dr. LaFonya Jones,
Dr. Rashonda Strickland,
and Dr. Nichelle Wall. Now, don't get it twisted. We're not going to be your stereotypical therapist.
What we will be is down to earth, informative, a little spicy, and vulnerable.
All right, interns, turn up the volume, grab your pen and paper. It's supervision time. As a reminder, this podcast is not meant to take the place of a relationship with a licensed mental health professional.
Welcome back to Session 10. It Keeps Calling Me.
I love that title. Okay, interns. Today, you may want to take out your pen and your paper. And this one is, I would say, a little bit on the more serious side, particularly because the month of September is Substance Abuse Awareness. And we figured it would be important for us to bring this subject to awareness. And it's particularly my specialty. So that's one of the reasons why we are going to definitely address it. So what we would like to start with is particularly substance addiction. So when we say substance addiction, it includes alcohol and drugs under that umbrella. Would you all agree?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. So let's just kind of discuss the fact that substances is a difficult subject to deal with overall, because no one really wants to admit that they have an addiction. And I know we're going to talk about this later, but no one wants to realize that they know someone with a substance addiction, especially when it gets to the point where it's, you know, they homeless or it's really bad. They have to go to rehab.
Bottom.
Yeah, exactly. So the true definition of what an addiction is, it's a complex brain disease, okay, that manifests by compulsivity. And despite the consequences, they continue to go back to it. So how I typically try to explain it to my either addicts or family members, it's a psychological and physiological reliever, and it's also an emotional reliever, just to kind of put it simply.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for our Psych 101 lesson.
So basically, addiction is a disorder of the brain. So when you begin to use substances, what happens is your brain is rewired, and the more addicts use an addiction, it changes the grooves of the brain structure, which is why it's difficult for them to stop. It is why the cravings are there, and it's why they get triggered. So you guys that are thinking cravings, I have cravings too. I have cravings for chocolate. I have cravings, for different things. They are two different things.
Unless you're addicted.
Yes. So cravings for a substance is not the same as the cravings for chocolate. Cravings for substances is something that it's almost like how you have anxiety, and when you try to fall asleep and you can't because your thoughts are racing. That's how it is for people who use some sort of substances. They are always thinking about it. They're always figuring out their plan. As soon as they open their eyes, how can I get it? Who can I trick? Who can I get money from? Who can I manipulate? That's their train of thought. As soon as they open their eyes.
You would think somebody would be exhausted, doing that. If all of your time and energy is spent in seeking and obtaining this thing.
It is exhausting, because by the time that an addict gets to that point, it's no longer about a choice, because a lot of times people say, well, it's not a disease, because, we do consider it to be a disease, but people tend to think that it's not a disease because they're choosing to do it. So let me go through that process of that choice. I'm going to start with when someone comes out of rehab.
Okay.
So when someone comes out of rehab, they have 14, 7, 14, 21, 28 to 30 days of sobriety. That means that they've had group, they've had lectures, they've had individual therapy, family therapy. They had all of this therapy and all of this time. Well, not all of this time, but some time to heal.
Mm-hmm. In a controlled environment.
Yes. I was just going to say in a bubble. So it's easier for them to stay sober in that controlled environment. So when they come out, if they don't work a program, and I'll talk about a program in just a second. If they don't work a program, what happens is they have these thoughts, right? Mm-hmm. And it's inevitable. Thoughts are going to happen because they are addicts. They're going to think about it. However, that's when they still have a choice, but they have to do something at that level of thoughts. So that means that they have to go, they not have to, but they should either meditate or pray, whatever their higher power is, or read some literature, something.
Yeah.
So
some type of coping.
some type of coping. So they start with the thoughts. So if they don't do anything at the level of the thoughts, then it's inevitable. It's gonna grow and it's gonna change into cravings. And that the cravings, that should be a red flag for them to know that they have to do something more intense. So meaning that they need to talk to their sponsor. They may need to go to a meeting. They may need to come to therapy.
Gotcha.
Because if they don't do anything at the cravings level, what happens is once they get to obsessions level, I'm going to say 90% of the time, it's inevitable they're going to relapse, because that's when they lose their choice. When they have thoughts and cravings, they still have a choice because they have enough time to, one, talk themselves. I don't want to say talk themselves out like it's just easy to do that, but to do something, a coping skill that will help them to get out of that mindset. But they have to do something at those two levels. If they don't and they get to obsessions, they're going to relapse. And that's when they lose their choice.
Gotcha.
Man, that's tough.
It is.
You know, it's interesting. Addiction is so all consuming. I used to work in an inpatient facility, and one of the units that I worked on was the chemical dependency unit. And when you see individuals come in at their breaking point, it's just so devastating. They don't look anything like themselves. They are angry. And anybody would be angry. You locked me up, you know? So
Right.
that's understandable. It's just such a long, hard path to get back if they want to.
Yeah. And not only do you lock them, well, because a lot of the places that I've worked, it's voluntary and it's not a lockdown unit, so they can leave if they want to.
Yeah.
But they come in and their only coping mechanism that they have been using probably for years at this point is taken away from them.
Yeah.
And so now they are kind of just exposed. They don't know what to do.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of times they have started using those substances at the age of 12, maybe younger.
I was just getting ready to ask, like, in your experience, what has been like some of the youngest, starts for use of substances, whether they were, the quote, what people call gateways, or even in the harder stuff?
I would say for me, I've heard, I want to say the youngest may have been 11, but I get more 12.
Gotcha.
I've seen a 9.
Ooh.
Yeah. I think because it was laying around. Because remember, I used to work for CPS. So
that's true.
Laying around, and then the mom was so far in her addiction that she just started smoking with the baby. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. That's intense.
It is. And so when they come to these, and I'll just keep it on the treatment facilities or rehabs. So when they come to these treatment facilities, there are 4 categories of symptoms that we look for as mental health professionals. One of them is impaired control. Like they, have impaired control. So this is when they have cravings and there's a strong urge to use the substance. And remember earlier when I was saying at this point that they have that strong urge, it's no longer a choice. They're now doing it out of necessity. their body, their brain structure has now been rewired, and they feel like they have to have it.
Well, and I would say for some substances they do.
Oh yeah.
You know, for ones like alcohol or heroin. You know.
Oh, I would say all of them.
All of them.
Well,
Because
I'm
you can
thinking,
die.
yeah, some of them are you literally without it you will die.
Yeah. And they feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you've ever worked at a rehab and seen someone detox off of opiates,
It is horrible.
it's so sad. Like you almost, like you can almost understand how family members enable them.
Yeah.
Because if you have to
You don't
look
wanna
at that,
see it.
yes. And just imagine me being a therapist or a mental health provider and looking at that and having that empathy for them.
Yeah.
And I don't have any attachment to them.
Mm-hmm.
And a family member, you don't want to see that, because it looks literally withdrawing from opiates look like you have the flu. You have the cold sweats, you have body aches, you have the nasal congestion. It looks like the flu.
You know what it reminds me of? If the listeners, if our interns need a visual, if you've seen the movie Ray, when he goes through his detox, that's an accurate depiction of detoxing.
Yes.
You know, the hallucinations, what your body goes through, the sweats, the raging, it's bad.
Intense. Yes. And then impaired control, they've made attempts to try and stop, because many times a lot of people go through rehab several times, you know, and that's why a lot of people believe that rehab and therapy doesn't work. But in order for it to work, it's not just about willing it away and wishing it away. There's I'll get back to the 4 categories. I haven't forgot where I was. You have to work a program. And so I was telling you all earlier that I will come back to a program. So they have what they call in the rooms, which is AA or some sort of 12-step group. They have what they call the 5 Alive. And that's either AM prayer or meditation, reading literature, going to a meeting, speaking with a sponsor, and PM prayer and meditation. So that's what you call a 5 Alive. Okay. So in order for them to work a program, they need to be in therapy. They need to have a sponsor. They need to be attending meetings. And typically when they first get out of rehab, their sponsors, especially if you have an old school sponsor, the sponsors require them to do 90 and 90, which is 90 meetings in 90 days. And so in order for them to do that, they have to work a program to be able to at least stay, I want to say stable, but they still have to do something.
Yeah.
They have to apply those things that they're learning to their lives. Now, mind you, you still have to deal with the reconstruction of the brain too.
Yeah.
Because every time you relapse, I don't know if y'all have ever paid attention to someone who continues to relapse, every time they relapse, their cognition decline.
Yes.
I believe it.
Bad.
And that's because they haven't given their brains time to heal, because for a lot of them, again, this impaired control is difficult to do because the brain has been rewired to believe that you have to have that substance in your body. Because technically for opiates, we have opiates, a neurotransmitter called opiates in our body. That's why when we, hit our funny bone, it doesn't last forever. I don't know why they call it a funny bone, but
it feels funny.
It feel okay, I guess. But it hurt. That's what it does. So it hurt. And so that's because the opiate neurotransmitter is going to the brain to tell it to stop in that area. So when you put extra opiates in your body thinks it's the opiates that's in our body, so it lets it in. Yeah. And so now it's acting like the natural opiate that we release.
I would say it's the same thing with nicotine, because we have natural nicotine receptors in our brain as well.
Throwing off everything. I think an important part of what you were saying, Dr. Jones, with the different steps and the programs and things of that nature. And a lot of people who are going through addiction don't realize this, is that you are literally setting up your support system, and you have to play an active role in that. And unfortunately, when you're in addiction, you are all about self.
Yes.
But it's on the selfish end of it instead of it being the healthy end. So then you get out, you don't really know how to do any of that stuff anymore. And so it is very difficult, and they feel like it's a burden to do all of this. Why should I have to do this? It's a lot of that going on.
Yes, that is very true. That is very true. So another category that they have to deal with, or that we look at, is the social problems that occur. So basically what this is substances has caused you to have problems at your work, in your marriage, in your friendship or friendships, sibling rivalries, all it how it's affecting you in those areas of your life.
This brings to mind for me, because this is something that I've had clients say to me before, and I probably at some point early on in my career have said myself, is like the functional alcoholic, or like the functional, or casual user, not really realizing like, no, you're still having all of the same damaging effects go on in your daily life that someone that's, I don't want to say well off, but very deep in to their addiction.
I started smiling on that when she said functioning addiction or addict, because any of my clients that may listen to this and they are in addiction, they know that functioning addict thing, and it's probably just a me thing, but it bothers me, and I'm gonna tell you why it bothers me. Yes, you're not. If you have to wake up in the morning to take a hit or take a drink, that's not functioning, because I'm using my air quotes. Normal people don't have to wake up and take a hit or take a drink or leave work for lunch and go get a hit or a drink. Right. That's not functioning. You're actually doing the opposite, and I hope so. I hope we can have some dialogue. I hope somebody out there disagree with me so that we can have a dialogue, because I did have a dialogue with someone on Facebook before, and this particular person was in recovery, and he was saying that that's what helped him get through, because his family didn't know that he was using. And so I told him, I said, to me, that's an excuse that addicts, that's a created excuse for addicts to keep doing what they're doing.
That's kind of what I was thinking. Why people use the word functional is because you are still doing all of this, like you were saying, quote, normal people things. They're still doing all of the normal people things, still going to work, still hanging out with friends, still essentially being somewhat engaged in a social life. So they, on the outside, appear to be functioning and able to get through life, even though on a more base level, they really are not functioning, but to the outside world, they look like they are.
It's a justification. It reminds me of the difference between being tipsy and being drunk. It's the same thing. You're just at the beginning stages of drunk. That's all it is.
Right.
And, usually one of the things that I ask people who say this functioning addict thing is, especially if it's I typically use it, and I know this is going to sound very sexist, I typically use it with men who use whatever substance at home. And I'll say, so if someone were to break into your home, would you be able to protect your family? And they always say, well, I guess not. So then how are you functioning?
Yeah, that's a question. Because I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Because I think this is becoming much more prevalent with marijuana, and people. It's become much more acceptable socially than it used to be. Not that people smoke it any more or less than they have, but on a societal level, it's not considered to be as taboo as it used to be.
Yeah.
And I do hear this a lot in session, that, well, I just need to wind down at the end of the day. You know, I had a stressful day, or, you know, it helps me go to sleep or whatnot. Or I only smoke it at night, you know, when I'm trying to do this, or I only do it on the weekends. So I hear a lot of that with marijuana. And that question makes a lot of sense because, well, if you're using that as your come down, you're not going to be in a headspace to really be alert and have good reaction time and all of those kind of necessary things like that.
Yeah, I agree. Another category or symptom that we look at is risky use. So substances used in risky settings like trap houses, or continued use despite problems. So you know that, you know, your significant other has now found out that you use and has, you know, threatened to either put you out or divorce, and or you've gotten pulled over for a DWI.
I was thinking, or you've been written up at your job?
Yes.
Or fired?
Yes, I agree with both.
CPS called on you.
Yeah, that
too. That one. You know, even risky, meaning that, you know, perhaps your significant other works at night and you have little children and you use when they go to sleep.
Yeah. Because it is, I mean, it's the same thing as you were saying. If somebody come in, how you going to be able to protect them? And y'all, that's not to say that the three of us are against using your medication correctly or using approved substances correctly in the United States.
Yes,
correct.
That's where we are.
Correct.
We're not saying that, but we're talking about the level that is extreme, which is addiction.
Yes. Because to tie into that, the fourth category is the drug effect. So whether your tolerance has increased. Because now, like Dr. Wall said, a lot, and this happens a lot with opiates, because a lot of people technically start opiates because of some sort of pain. So what they do is, obviously, they take the medication for the pain. They see that it's a reliever, and they continue. And what happens is they increase the opiate because the prescribed milligrams are not working anymore. And so they increase it. So now your body has now gotten to a level where it's tolerant of the prescribed milligrams.
Well, that's because the body's adaptable. You know, it's always trying to figure out, what are you doing and how can I get used to that?
Yes.
Our bodies are beautiful things. They are machines, and we do not properly use them.
Yeah, it's the same as if you're working out. You know, at one point you only could do 10 pounds, and then you keep doing 10 pounds. And then, you know, one day you say, you know what, let me try 15. And then 15 gets easy. Well, let me try 20, and then so on and so forth. And before you know it,
beast mode.
Okay. You up here doing 60 pounds on one arm. No, I mean, I'm definitely not trying to get there, but
Right.
but you know, your body, just like Dr. Wall said, it is a machine, and it is designed for efficiency, even if that efficiency is something that's going to tear you apart.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what the body looks for. Because the thing is, we're all, I guess, kind of conditioned to have more, to do more, to increase, you know, things. And the thing is, that's not even on just a substance level. That's on even our career.
Yep.
Education.
Never enough.
That's why we doctors.
Okay. Look.
Well, that's not my reason. We're not going to go into that, though.
I feel attacked. Just put us all on Front Street.
Yes, ma'am. Because I will admit to my own vice.
Yeah. So then, what are, you know, for the listeners that may not be fully aware of all of the different types of substances that are out there, what have you seen, Dr. Jones, as being the more commonly used for people that come and seek therapy on an outpatient level?
Okay. I would say it would be alcohol and opiates.
Okay.
I would say definitely alcohol. Nowadays, everybody uses marijuana, so I'm not even going to mention that one like that. But I would say alcohol, and I've actually seen a lot of people using cocaine.
Yeah, I can agree with that one too.
Yeah. I think that one tends to fly under the radar a lot.
It's the party drug. Or it's the old school party drug. Let me rephrase that because I'm showing my age.
No, but I do think
nowadays,
it is making a resurgence though,
Okay.
With younger people. It's not, again, it has not reached the level of acceptability, if that is a word, that marijuana has.
Yes.
But I think that's because of our generation and before. But us and behind, I think it's much more accepted.
Yeah.
I would say also if you are in a more rural area, you're probably going to see more meth.
I would agree with that.
Because you have the ability to make it, which it's typically made in rural areas or close rural areas outside of big cities or something of that nature.
Yeah.
What else have y'all seen?
Outpatient, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. The only other thing I could probably say, and this was more so in my hometown of Abilene, was we had a huge influx of black tar heroin.
Okay.
That's the serious stuff. Like they had a whole department for black tar heroin. It was bad.
I would say and this may be, you didn't grow up in Texas, but I would say another thing when we were coming up was syrup.
Oh yeah.
That was a big thing. I don't know if it is still a thing now.
I think it is because wasn't what's that boy name? With the dreads that look like they need Jesus.
Lil Wayne.
Lil Wayne. Need to breathe life back into him. Lil Wayne and also Gucci Man. I know we talking about celebrities, but I know both of them had some issues with syrup. And I know Lil Wayne's was so bad that his teeth were falling out.
Yeah. And for those that don't know what syrup is, it's
promethazine.
Yeah, liquid codeine and Sprite often mixed together. And some, I don't know what the concentrations of these things are, but they're pretty high. And it's basically made into a drink.
It reminds me of taking amoxicillin as a kid, the pink medicine and tastes like bubble gum. I couldn't get that down. So I'm not going to be able to get nothing else
it
down.
Is nasty.
Ugh.
Yeah. I think one that, and I don't know if it's still popular, but I don't think it's stuck. Bath salts. Have y'all heard anything else about?
Not
recently. Was that the one where people were like eating faces?
Climbing. It was like the zombie effect.
Yeah.
I haven't seen anything recently.
Not recently.
Yeah, me neither.
I think that scared people enough to where they said I shouldn't do that.
Thank you. I'm glad.
Got Superman strength. Like no.
That's I'm glad they stayed away from that one.
No.
Okay. So then I think it sounds like we are all pretty much on the same page that the more common ones for people that come to see us in our level of care is alcohol and opiates for the most part. Gotcha.
Yeah.
But I hear marijuana mentioned pretty much
Daily.
At least several times a day.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, but like Dr. Wild was saying, it's kind of normalized now.
And we're just really waiting on each state to be legal.
Yeah.
At this time, it's more so if it becomes addiction. You rarely see a lot of marijuana addicts, but they are there.
Oh yeah.
You know, if you got to smoke all day, every day, like the song say, then that's a problem.
Every day.
Well, and the thing is with that, with this area being my specialty, it's hard because I come from the era of marijuana not being being abnormal,
Yeah.
And so it's been difficult for me to transition to it not being normal. So a lot of times the only time I really kind of I guess, try to address it is if they're if they're needing a diagnosis of like maybe bipolar or something like that. Because I let them know, look, I don't know, or even depression, because I don't know if it's the marijuana or if you really do have symptoms. So I do try to get them to stop it, because for all of you who may not know, marijuana and alcohol are downers. So you may feel depressed, but when you come to a professional, you are not, well, at least when you come to me, I'm not necessarily going to diagnose you with either of those, because I don't know when I'm diagnosed.
Trying to figure out which it is. Is it because you're taking this substance, or is it because of this? I know I have a client who, when she first started seeing me, she was drinking bottles of wine every night. And she was talking about she was depressed. Maybe you're going to have to stop drinking wine.
Right.
All night.
You know, it's a funny thing about alcohol is that a lot of people don't think of wine when they think of alcoholism.
That's right. Because it's supposed to be healthy.
Right. That's something new that I've seen, that people, beer and of course hard liquor, everyone's like, oh yeah. But no, I just have 3 glasses of wine at night. And I'm like, well, that's a whole bottle.
Ma'am,
right.
Ma'am, you're not Italian. Stop it.
And then they'll say, I have a glass, and how big is the glass?
To the brim.
First of all, you're supposed to drink 3 to 4 ounces of red wine occasionally. That is what doctors have said. You know what I mean? You're not supposed to be turning up on your Moscato. Like, that's not what you're supposed to be doing. And I get it, because I am I'm a drinker, but I'm not. You have to remember that the more you drink, the more it is going to start to inebriate you. All kind of stuff gonna come out.
If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's certain tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. That's ANCHOR.FM.
Yes.
Oh, Lord.
Well, and yeah, that I'm gonna talk about that a little bit later. Just a second.
Well, get into it, Dr. Jones.
Well, okay. So I wanted to talk about something that so I used to have my family, when I worked at a facility, I would have my family members to watch this movie called Pleasure Unwoven. And I did find it on YouTube, just in case you all want to watch it. I did find it on YouTube, but it was choppy. So you may just want to order the video, because it really is a really good introductory of what substances are doing to your body and why it's called a disease. So in the movie, he talks about a dopamine hypothesis. So dopamine is the pleasure neurotransmitter. I'm just gonna not try to get in too deep with that. It's just the pleasure principle. Yes.
I was just about to
So basically what this is saying is that regardless of the drug, whether it's an upper or downer, there is an ability to release the dopamine in the pleasure area of the brain. And the dopamine hypothesis says that if a person has a problem with one substance, they'll have a problem with another substance. So say for instance, a lot of people used to come into treatment and they want to, stop using cocaine. So they stopped using cocaine, but they didn't want to stop drinking. Well, the only thing that does, and I wish I had a video in here and a dry erase board, because I'm a visual person, y'all. So I try to write stuff on the boards. But so what happens is we have a natural spike of dopamine when we, get a new car, get a new house, get a new job, get married, things like that. We have a natural spike, and that's a normal spike. But when we introduce a substance in our body, we have an unnatural spike that happens that we're not supposed to receive. So when you stop using I'll just use cocaine. When you stop using cocaine and you continue to use the alcohol, you're still getting a spike, which is why a lot of people tend to go back to their drug of choice, which is the cocaine, because they never stopped that spike. So that's why a lot of old school people in recovery, they'll say they're like trying naltrexone, which is a kind of an abuse to decrease the cravings for alcohol, or even Suboxone, which is supposed to decrease the cravings for opiates. When they take those things, old school, like, nope, you still not in recovery. Because they believe you're supposed to go
nothing. Gotcha. That's interesting. It's funny. That just kind of keyed me in on thinking, like, well, what's the difference between an old school someone in recovery and a new school someone in recovery?
So old school, like, okay, if you've never been into the rooms, which is the meetings, you should go. You should really go if they have an open meeting, because it's so interesting to see the difference in the dynamics.
Night and day.
Because old school, they don't even want people who are new in recovery to talk in the meetings. Like, only thing
you don't have any experience.
You don't have no experience. Only thing you need to do is introduce yourself. Other than that, sit down and shut up. And that's what they'll tell them. And so I'm not being rude, y'all. I'm not being condescending. That's what they'll tell. Sit down and shut up. You don't know nothing.
And for everybody who hasn't experienced an AA, NA, or SA meeting, it's run by the people in the meeting. It's not run by the clinician or the person on staff. It's typically run by the people that are in recovery.
Yes. And I've gone to different ones. Like, I've gone to AA and I've gone to AA and NA. Those are the only two I've kind of gone to. And it's even within those, they're different.
Gotcha.
You know, AA, they are more, I guess I would call them more conservative. NA, they get to the raw, they cussing, they raw.
You be clutching your pearls.
But they have so many different, while substances have a lot of similarities, but what your experience of that substance is very different between AA and NA.
Yeah.
Of course, you can hit rock bottom with both, but how quickly you gonna hit rock bottom, the way you gonna hit rock bottom, is gonna look different between the two of those.
Yeah.
And what you will do to get some of those substances between the two of them is very different as well.
Yeah.
In my experience on the NA end, there's a lot more risky, potentially like promiscuous behavior versus on the AA side.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. I mean, even, yes, they can have some crossover, but still, I think I definitely would agree with you.
Yeah. And I also feel like people who drink and are addicts, it doesn't always show up as threatening, like we were talking about earlier. With NA, you typically gonna get that rage. You typically gonna get some type of
erratic behavior.
Yeah, stuff about to pop off, and it's not gonna be good. Yeah.
Yeah. You tend out. I guess I would want to look at if anybody has ever researched it, to see which one you notice quicker, like alcohol or drugs. I mean, I don't.
If I had to give my armchair expert or my off the cuff, I would think the other substances you probably would notice first.
You said you would?
I think so. Versus alcohol, because it can take alcohol. One, again, it's socially acceptable, so I can use it in so many different settings, and no one is gonna think twice about it.
That's true.
Versus the other ones, pretty much are used in private and secret.
Yeah. I want to say almost every other addiction is like that. you know, it,
Even marijuana.
Except for, I would say cigarettes, alcohol, and marijuana are probably the only, and even cigarettes are becoming less socially acceptable.
Yeah, that's true.
Just kind of given all of the marketing against it. But still, I mean, but if you smoke a cigarette, no one's going to be like, oh my God.
yeah.
Right.
You're smoking a cigarette, you know?
Yeah.
So I would think that the other ones, and because they're the damaging effects of them are so quick. Like if you're doing, you know, methamphetamines, I mean, your body's going to start breaking down very quickly, you know, the sores and the teeth, and, you know, because then comes this lack of hygiene, which is
paranoia.
which is going to, you know, intensify whatever was already going on because of the substance.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
So that's just my off the cuff.
Yeah, you may have some truth on that. You know, I was just wondering that. Well, I've always wondered that. You know, like Dr. Wall said, we're all nerds, so you know we have random thoughts.
So true.
So to elaborate a little bit more on the dopamine neurotransmitter thing. So, like I said, the dopamine neurons, they send reward processing up to the frontal cortex, okay? And that the frontal cortex is the executive functioning, the judgment, you know, that area. So when the dopamine is sent to the frontal cortex, what happens is the frontal cortex then sends another message down, which is glutamate, to the midbrain to release the glutamate, and the dopamine says this is important. Okay. The glutamate says, okay, I'll remember. So then the dopamine says, I really want this. And then the glutamate says, okay, go get it. And that's how the relapse keeps going. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we studied it. Yeah.
Makes sense to me. Brain says, I want it.
Yep.
One part of the brain says, I want it. Other part of the brain says, gotcha. And then when that part of the brain says, hey, remember that thing I told you about?
Yes.
I want, it says, hey, yeah, okay, go ahead. I give you permission to go seek that thing.
Exactly. And
Back
that is
and forth.
Back and forth. And that is exactly why it's difficult for people to stop using, because every time they relapse, it's a memory that's held. Like, hey, you remember when you felt like that the last time? That's what you did right there. You told me to remember.
It's literal muscle memory.
Exactly.
Because your brain is a muscle.
And every time, I know we talked about the grooves changing. Every time those grooves change, you wipe that pleasure principle out. So when they get sober, I think Dr. Wall was saying this earlier, when they get sober, they don't know what pleasure feels like anymore. They don't know what peace feels like anymore. So you may take them to Six Flags or something, and everybody is having fun except for them. They don't understand why you're having fun. Like, y'all just riding on a roller coaster.
Yeah.
And so then they come to me, and I have to teach them how to feel again. But in my teaching them how to feel again, I have to be cautious, because that's why they use in the first place.
Yep. Because that's exactly what I was thinking, that lack of pleasure would drive them to go back and use again.
Because I'm sorry, Dr. Wall, were you going to say that? Oh, okay. Because when you see them, they'll say the reason why I relapse is because I'm bored. They don't know the difference between boredom and peace, because they're so used to their lives being chaotic and on the hustle and bustle of trying to get the drug, trying to hide it, trying to figure out who, to manipulate, you know what I mean? All those things we talked about earlier.
It goes back to what we were saying on a different session about being disconnected from their emotions.
Yep.
As a culture, a whole, we are disconnected from our emotions, and then you add addiction into that. Oh, all hell about to break loose.
Oh yeah. Yeah. But that's one of the very reasons addicts continue to use, because one, they have the guilt of the damage that they've already done, and you hold on to guilt anyway, regardless of whether or not you're an addict or not. You hold on to that guilt. And so for addicts, because they have that restructuring of their brain, you never see, the thing is, when I see teenagers and they, are stressed out and, dealing with heavy things, I try to talk them out of using any type of addictive type of things, whether it's caffeine, whether it's, drinking Coca-Cola, smoking
Monsters.
cigarettes. Yes, because you never know what gene you have, because gene can be one of the reasons why you are addicted. Because when you have a certain type of gene structure and you have the environment to go along with it, that's a recipe for addiction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I can attest to that in my own family system. The difference between me and some other family members, like I don't have an addictive personality. I don't have the addictive genes in my body. I'm like, nah, I'm good. I could be in the middle of a whole pile of cocaine and I'm be like, nah, I'm good. Like, that's just me.
Because you have that resilient brain.
I do. And I have other people in my family, and I don't want to mention who it is because I don't want them to feel any type of way, where it's been a struggle since day one.
I think we all have somebody in our family,
Yeah.
if not multiple people, either out in the open or in secret that are struggling.
Yeah.
When you talk about that gene thing, I think that's so important, because I've said this to the ladies before, is I'm not sensitive to caffeine. So there's some mutation in my genes that does not make me sensitive to caffeine. I can drink a soda and literally go lay down and it will do nothing.
And see, I'm the very opposite. And see, I know I have a gene, for addiction. So it's, they know I don't drink. And if I do drink, it's very social.
I usually finish it for her.
Yes.
And we make sure she gets home to her man.
Yes.
Yes. Sober driving, guys.
Yes.
DD and all that.
Exactly.
Don't be out here trying to get me in the comments.
Yes. So if I'm going through something, like I'm going through something heavy or whatever, I know that's not the time for me to drink.
Oh, no.
Because that, with me having a gene, or at least I assume I have a gene. Let me say that. Because I assume I have the gene, and if I'm going through something heavy, if I'm going through something heavy, that's a recipe right there. And I'm like, nope, I'm not even getting ready to try that.
Yeah.
It's just like the emotional eating.
I was literally just thinking that.
Like, if you have a stressed out day and then you go and get, I'm just going to say a chicken spot and take Chicken Express, and you get like the 4-piece with the Arnold Palmer with the cherry pie.
Why are you like, I'm hungry now.
Because I was like, chicken.
See,
Ooh,
they
some
know
mashed
this.
potatoes.
They know this because we're all in a fitness group together. And so I posted a few weeks back that I was like, I had a cheat meal, and that's the exact cheat meal that I had.
Because when you started, I was like, chicken E. I was like, hold on.
But it's the same thing. It's
Absolutely.
Food has a little bit different because you're thinking of comfort versus a high or a downer, but it does the exact same thing in your body.
Yes.
It's about relief. And some sort of release, which is why you tend to go for foods that are heavy. If you're going to eat comfort foods, I don't know too many people out there going, I'm going to get my kale and cucumber smoothie. Ain't nobody out here thinking that that's comfort food. The first thing that comes to your mind is rich, decadent, thick, heavy foods that carry, that give you that sense of fullness.
Ice cream.
Yes.
Right.
And I'm a whole lactose intolerant.
Oh. bloop, 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 bloop. Girl, telling you.
Oh my gosh. I can't believe you just said that.
But I agree, that
Yes.
food does have that same kind of feeling. And I think that's, I'm sorry, am I cutting you off? I think that's a good segue for us to talk about non-substance addictions.
Which are called can be called cross addictions.
Yeah.
So not only does the substances release dopamine, behaviors can do that as well.
Absolutely. So some of the ones that are pretty commonly known would be things like gambling, sex addiction. What else do we have?
food
on both ends, overeating, and if you get to the place of anorexia and bulimia, you have both sides of that. That's actually under the addictions.
Yes.
I mean, I've heard a new one. The name of it's going to escape me, but there's I was watching this video on YouTube about becoming addicted to being healthy. So not necessarily you're addicted to fatty foods or, you're under eating, but you're addicted to being healthy.
It's like the anorexia, but not with the food component.
Right.
I don't remember what it's called.
I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, but that's a new one that I definitely heard about.
That's interesting. Mm-hmm. So essentially they do the same thing. They release the same dopamine pleasure principle. Pleasure, that's not what it's called, y'all. It's pleasure.
Another one that I don't think we talk about enough, shopping.
Oh, yeah.
No. Well, retail therapy is considered to be okay.
But it ain't. Even if you got the money, it's about, is this healthy? Right. It's not about, can I buy it? It's, is this healthy? Because when you think of a shopping addiction, you normally think of like people being broke, not being able to pay their bills. But there's a whole bunch of rich people with tons of money that have that same addiction, and it's wreaking havoc in their life. It kind of goes, I put shopping addiction and hoarders in the same box.
Okay.
Because you need to get, and you need to get, and you need to get.
In store.
Yeah. Like why you got the same purse in 7 colors?
That doesn't make sense to me. But
I definitely understand where you're going with that, though.
Yeah. I have
I wasn't saying what you just said. It makes that just to have the purses in 10 different colors.
I have someone that I used to go to church with, and she's a shopaholic. And she's on that level of, I'm going to buy the same shirt, but it's going to be in the 7 different colors. And then I'm going to go get some pants, and I'm going to get them in 3 colors. All the same. And she has these purges that she does. She's like, anybody want anything? I'll just purge it and give it to you. Then I'm going to go buy all more stuff. It's such an unhealthy cycle.
That sounds like a people pleaser, codependent.
Probably OCPD. I mean, sorry, y'all. Obsessive compulsive personality disorder.
They like, what in the world? You just throwing out these alphabet soup? Like, what is that?
We be forgetting, y'all. We be forgetting that y'all listening sometimes.
There was one thing that I was talking about with Dr. Jones the other day that's not necessarily, I don't think it's ever really been categorized under the idea of addiction, but I do think it's something that's unique to millennials and Gen Z is grinding or like hustling.
Yeah,
like, you trying to get to the next spot and trying to get to this next level, that kind of, you always need to be working, and that, if you're not working, then you're being lazy. And if I think that's a new addiction that's coming around for people.
I can definitely, because it's, I would say that it's more acceptable. So you wouldn't even we wouldn't identify it as an addiction because it's acceptable to be on your grind.
And think about people who are on the opposite end of that spectrum, the people that are like, you need to calm yourself down, you need to meditate. They're like, those people are lazy. Those people are probably a little bit more well-rounded and okay than the rest of us.
Yeah.
Right.
I agree.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, no, because I was just thinking, I'm definitely not going to put myself in that category, but I feel like I'm about to. Just the idea of that you want more and you want better for yourself, and just thinking about kind of what we're doing. We all work in a bustling private practice. We're doing a podcast, at some point we
have a conference.
We have a conference that we're, attempting to get back off the ground, and just, what does that do? Because it's not going to break you down in the same way like a substance would, but it has the potential to break you down.
Well, I think balance.
You would have to have a balance, but I can see it becoming an issue if it's a compulsive type of thing. Like you're constantly on your phone or on your laptop or on your, iPad, whatever electronic device you have, always trying to find, okay, so how can I increase my social media presence, or how can I, you know what I mean? Now, and granted, I understand that we have to get an understanding of how to do that.
Yeah.
But if it's a constant, betterment of,
like you're not sleeping and
right,
that kind of stuff. Gotcha.
and I would say that it will probably increase the anxiety.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. And I think the difference is there's accountability in our group, speaking about us specifically. We'll check each other and don't have no problem. And I want one of y'all to be mad. I really don't care. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, if you're doing life with people, you love them.
Right.
You don't want them falling apart.
Yeah.
And I expect the same thing back. Y'all have told me several times over this last year, if you don't get somewhere and sit down, why are you at the office?
Yeah. No, I agree.
Just one other one that I was thinking about was being like addicted to love, or
That's a new one that's been going around.
like being addicted to I don't even know if it's a fear of being alone, but
The need to be needed.
yeah.
That is a big one.
It's a bunch of love addicts. I know it hasn't made a huge rise in the public sector of the world, but if you're in the psychology world, you've probably been hearing some little stirrings about love addiction. It's kind of in the same, not exactly, but the same category as sex addiction. It's those endorphins coming out. It's
That's what you have to look out for, that adrenaline rush, because you can be addicted to anything. You can be addicted to skydiving because it gives you an adrenaline rush.
Adrenaline junkies.
Yes.
Man, again, our brains are wired for things that it likes and efficiently doing those things.
Yeah.
So if I can find a way, any way that I can, like you said, skydiving, or if that's, I'm addicted to the chase of a new relationship, or you should have saw Dr. Wall's face.
Y'all, the introvert came out. I'm sorry. I was like, ugh, no. You want to get to know me. Why?
Or if you're addicted, of course, like we've already talked about, if you're addicted to substances, or, if it's work, or if it's gambling, or if it is food, it's all about the high at the end of the day.
Yeah. And if you have a hard time stopping your chemical dependency or chemical addiction, you're also going to have a hard time stopping the behavioral addiction, which then is going to be difficult for you to stay sober.
Absolutely.
Y'all know one we forgot?
What?
And we literally just talked about this. Social media.
Oh yeah.
Because it's so new. Well, not so new, because I would say
within the last 10 years.
I was like, it came out when we were in college. Heavy, like tough, like what we have now. Not like MySpace and Black Planet. We're not talking about that.
Girl, Black Planet.
We're talking about
Planet.
like the ones that are still in existence.
Girl, I ain't heard Black Planet in a long time.
I heard Solange bought it and she trying to bring it back.
Girl.
Okay.
Don't let me find my page that I don't remember the name.
I know. I'm like, geez, that would be scary.
Y'all don't go
for
look
that
that
to
up,
be
please.
pulled
Don't
up
go
and
look
like, what was on my Black Planet?
Yeah.
This
I
is
didn't have
before the
that
days
account.
of like censoring yourself so that you don't say stuff that's inappropriate.
Yeah, that's when life was good. You could say what you wanted to say and didn't care.
Okay. Ooh, man.
Yeah.
Don't
But-
scare me like that, Dr. Wong.
But y'all, social media addiction is real, and it's because a bunch of marketers got together and set up these social media platforms. If the newest one, TikTok, it's just like these little things. Y'all, I got a TikTok. Don't follow me because ain't nothing on there. But I got a TikTok, and I looked up, and it was 5 hours later. And I said, oh, no, you got to get off my phone because that's not even in my personality to just get lost in a social media
Girl, I had to do
platform.
the same thing. I deleted it off my phone.
It'd be so fun, though. They'd be like,
And they just continue to scroll. Like the videos just come up. Like it's not like you go searching for one. It's like you watch one and then the next one pops up and then the next one and then the next one. And, you know, it's all based off the stuff that you said you liked. Well, you like dancing and you like, you know, comedy and you like food and you like art. So then they just, you know, the algorithms say.
And don't get into the fine man section. Let me stop. Let me come back.
I have none of that. I know
we're gonna show
about.
a tour after this
I have
podcast.
no idea what. I mean, I know what TikTok is, but yeah, no.
Yeah, but you know, you're right, Dr. Wall. All of these individuals have gotten together and they've learned what triggers our mind for binging. Netflix is the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes.
You know, it triggers our brain to just veg out and just sit in one spot and just continue to do this one thing over and over and over and over without you putting much effort into it.
We are using significantly less and less of our brains every year. We really are not physical beings anymore. We don't use our whole bodies, our whole minds. It reminds me of that movie, Lucy. Is that what it's called?
Oh, the one where she had that substance, or Limitless was like that as well.
I haven't seen Limitless.
So he had, speaking of substances, he took a pill.
Red or blue? No, I'm playing.
Right. He took a pill. And even though the concept of we use 10% of our brain is actually false, but based off the narrative of that movie, he took this pill and accessed 100% of his brain.
Okay. So that's exactly like Lucy. Lucy was essentially, I think, kidnapped or something like that. And they not injected her. She became a mule and with this new substance and the package burst because they beat her.
Yeah.
And she turned into this cold-blooded woman. And eventually she was able to like make her whole self disappear, and she was just in the world, could become any and everything that she wanted to be. But yeah, that's
drugs do not do that.
No.
So please don't.
You might think, and then you have some problems.
Just like people that be on those hallucinogens, you know, that psychedelic, funkadelic.
I'm sorry, y'all. I'm sorry. I'm not going to put his business out there, but I know somebody that accidentally had a hallucinogen.
Ooh.
Accidentally. And was seeing like pink elephants in the street.
Boy,
and every time
to climb on the elephant,
no, he was scared. But every time I think about hallucinogens, it's like pink elephants pop up in my head, and I die laughing. So I'm sorry.
Yeah, I have a friend that acquaintance, but she took a hallucinogen. Boy, the story she told, she had a bad trip though, and the story she told me, I was like, ooh, that's enough for me right there. All this stuff. She said she was seeing the pores on her face. Like the pores on her face were talking to her. I said, girl, that's a nightmare. I said, that's enough for me.
I know.
I don't ever want to get involved in anything that has anything to do with what you just said.
Right.
No, I would not be okay, y'all. Y'all know I got like texture issues, like eating things and like seeing weird textures. Y'all, I'm weird. But that would freak me out. Y'all would have to come get me.
Girl, I freak out seeing mushrooms grow.
I was just getting ready to put your business out there.
What is wrong?
So I know taking a hallucinogen would not be good for me.
Y'all have to be around her when she thinks it's a group of mushrooms together.
But I can eat mushrooms all day long. But if they growing out of the ground, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it.
See, the same way you feel about that is the same way I feel about like horny toad skin, like with all those 7,000 bumps. Y'all, I know we're weird. We digress. It's okay.
Yeah.
That's gross.
Well, we feel like that might be a good place to end.
Yeah, go ahead.
How about y'all digest on them mushrooms?
But y'all, you finished? If y'all do have questions and concerns, please do reach out, because we just wanted to make this first session in September be general and just give you good information about addiction and how it is a disease, and kind of just lay the foundation for the rest of the month.
So if you do know a family or someone that needs help with addiction, or you are the one that needs help with addiction, there are several rehabilitation facilities that you can go to. You have the Right Step, you have Mesa Springs, you have Carrollton Springs. Those are just 3 of the ones that we typically refer to, but there are several
in the DFW area.
Yes, in the DFW area. You have La Hacienda, but it's in San Antonio. If you want to get away, you can go there as well. You have Interhealth. Is that the name of it?
Mm-hmm.
Interhealth. You have them as well. So you can, call any of those facilities to receive the help. And if you need to have a referral or a resource, you can also give Balance Speaking a call, and we can give you the referral over the phone if we need to.
And if you need our phone number for that, because we want to make sure in this situation that we give that, it's 214-396-6503, because we want to make sure that y'all do have some type of outlet to be able to get that information.
You can also reach out to us on our Facebook page for Balance Speaking as well. You can find us at Balance Speaking, as well as our Instagram if you prefer to reach out to us that way.
And be mindful, if you do reach out to us on one of those social medias, DM us. Don't put it in it's because I'm sure you don't want anyone to know your business. So just DM us so that we can respond to you that way.
Must be this volume control.
So, okay, interns, process your notes. Be sure to catch us next session and find us on all major platforms at the Recycled Podcast.
If you're a new intern, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share.
Thanks for listening. And remember, we are shifting and reshaping our psyche through healing conversations and connections, one discussion at a time.